Hello, welcome back. I'm Evan Brand, certified functional medicine practitioner. I'm talking with you today about side effects. So when we're looking at conventional medicine, we're looking at pharmaceutical drugs. We know that over 10,000 people die each year just from using conventional over-the-counter medications such as Advil. When we're talking about natural medicine or functional medicine and we're using herbs and botanicals and vitamins and minerals, compared to the conventional model, we're going to have a significantly less risk for side effects or any other unwanted feelings or reactions to these products. However, it can happen. And I'm going to cover a couple of reasons of why that can happen. So the title of this talk is Supplements Make Me Feel Worse. And I'm sure you have a supplement graveyard at your house, maybe in your pantry or in your closet somewhere, of various supplements that you've tried that just haven't worked for you. And so we're going to talk about a couple of reasons of why that may have happened. Now, one, obviously, that's not on this list is going to be supplement quality. So for all of my supplement formulations that I use a professional healthcare company, and it's created by doctors for doctors. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm a functional medicine practitioner, but that credential allows me to access the highest quality. For myself, it's a must. I can't take any risk. When I'm working with people with autoimmune diseases such as Hashimoto's, I can't take a risk of getting some type of gluten exposure or other type of problematic ingredient, some type of filler or binder in that product. So that's why I use professional quality products, and I recommend that if you're not using professional grade, that you should upgrade to that. Now, it definitely increases your expense, but it's going to reduce your risk. So just that being said, let's just assume that the highest quality supplements available are what you're using and you're still having reactions to your supplement plan. Here's a couple reasons. So number one is going to be heavy metal toxicity. Now, for a lot of programs that I'm creating for my patients, I'm using a couple different things. So I'm going to be using vitamin C, and I'm also going to be using magnesium. Now, vitamin C and magnesium are both very important. So vitamin C, I'm using that a lot for people that have adrenal fatigue issues, because we know that vitamin C is stored in the adrenal glands. And so when we see a low adrenal picture or an adrenal dysfunction situation, we need to replenish that using vitamin C. So that's going to be one thing that I'm going to use. And then also I'm going to use magnesium, and typically that's going to help people with constipation issues. And I'll use other specific forms of magnesium depending on what we're trying to do. So I have a supplement called Calm Clarity. It's a form of magnesium called magnesium L-threonate, and I use that for people that have a lot of issues with relaxation. They just can't relax, they're too tense, they can't sleep, they have anxiety or panic attacks. That's what I use that for. Now, both of these nutrients here, though, what they do is it's going to help to flush out some of the heavy metal toxins that we may have accumulated. So we know that there are heavy metals everywhere. They're in the soil. So even when you go and you buy a bag of organic soil, there's typically going to be a link that's going to link you to a heavy metal report, and you can read about the heavy metal exposure that's in the organic potting soil or garden soil like I just bought the other day for my garden. So you really have to think that heavy metals are out there. We can't be afraid of them, but we have to be aware of them. Now, when we're going to add in something like a vitamin C or a magnesium, these can act as a mild chelation agent, meaning that that's going to push out the heavy metal toxicity. So something that you may want to ask about with your practitioner would be a heavy metal test. Now, you can look at a hair test, and that can be an accurate way to actually look at the heavy metal load. Now, I do not recommend running into the heavy metal test where someone makes you take a chelating agent like DSMA or something like that, and then you have to push. They call it a metals push test. I do not recommend that, because that can put people into anxiety or panic attacks, and you're going to take someone that already cannot flush out these toxins, and you're going to try to create more toxins just so that you can measure them in the urine. It's not a good idea. Because of the metals, basically you could have muscle pain, joint pain, skin reactions, anxiety, panics, irritability, panic attacks, heart palpitations. These could all be tied into you having heavy metal toxicity, and we're just pushing this pathway a little bit too hard with the vitamin C and the magnesium. So in that case, which is going to be the same case for all of these symptoms, what we're going to need to do is eliminate the supplements, all of your supplement program completely, for as long as it takes for you to feel normal again. So typically that's going to be anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. Now in some cases it may take you a little bit past 72 hours, it may take you 4 days to feel better. And that's unfortunate. Sometimes we crank up these pathways, and we know that magnesium supports hundreds of enzymatic reactions, and if we take someone that's been at a walking speed and then we throw them on a fighter jet, they're going to be in a little bit of shock. So we just really have to back down and then revisit that protocol a little bit later. So let's move on. So number 2 is going to be GI issues. So a lot of people that I see in my clinic have gut infections, so whether that's parasitic infections, bacterial overgrowth, we have SIBO cases, we have candida issues, which is a yeast overgrowth. And if there is some type of what we can call kind of a general dysbiosis situation, and we are pushing these pathways with these supplements, what can happen is the gut's just not ready for it. And we may feel nausea, we may just feel not like ourselves because our gut can't handle that. So if we already have some inflammation going on down there, and maybe we haven't identified that yet, supplements could fuel that fire a little bit and not make you feel well. So I covered that in another video about candida, how if you throw probiotics in, sometimes that can make you feel worse if there is some dysbiotic flora that needs to be addressed first. So HPA axis dysfunction in general. So this whole hypothalamus pituitary adrenal, this whole brain gland axis, if this system is dysfunctional and you've had an adrenal, a salivary adrenal panel run, and let's just say that you're supposed to be in between range here, but you're low all day, and then we turn the lights back on with these supplements, and we're basically fueling your adrenals back up and you're pumping out more hormones than you were used to, that can make you feel bad too. And like I said, sometimes we're just coming in with a heavy hammer and it's a little bit too hard hitting. Maybe we didn't ramp you up fast enough, or slow enough rather. We didn't ramp you up gently, and we just kind of threw you into something a little bit too quickly. If you're not ready for it, and if you've been feeling ill for a while, we may have to go slow and steady with you. So last, like I mentioned, it's sort of the same thing. Recalibration of the adrenals and the thyroid. So if we're adding in magnesium, if we're adding in adaptogens like ashwagandha that I commonly use for adrenal fatigue, we're going to be recalibrating and supporting the thyroid. So if you're on thyroid medication, that could also be a factor. If you're on blood pressure medication or something like that, and we're using, say, magnesium and some herbs that support thyroid health and that support healthy blood pressure, when you're taking pharmaceuticals that lower blood pressure or that support thyroid, that may not work perfectly with the supplement. It's not necessarily that it's a negative interaction. The magnesium can be just as powerful as a blood pressure lowering drug. So keep that in mind. I hope these 4 things are helpful. And the long story of this made short is that you really just have to take everything out. Let's say you're not feeling well. Take everything out, all right? And just pause. Wait until you feel better. Wait until you feel like you did before you started everything. When you're back to square one, then revisit one supplement at a time. So whether that's your vitamin C, your mineral, your vitamin, start with one thing at a time and add that in at just a fraction of the dose. So if you're supposed to take 3 doses a day, just start with 1. Or if you're supposed to take 1 dose, divide that dose in half or even in thirds. And just baby step your way up. And as you work up that first supplement, and we're just sort of working up, 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 move on to your next. Work up, 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 move on to your next. Up, 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 and then up, up, up. And then eventually now you're right here at the top of the line and you're right where you were supposed to be with all of your ingredients. So if you're starting here at the baby dose of everything, perfect. You started here, good, move on to the next, good, move on to the next, good, and then you just work your way up. And then you're just climbing this ladder, and eventually you're at the therapeutic dose where we want you to be, and then you're going to get better and you're not going to have these side effects. So this is Evan Brand signing out. If you'd like to schedule a 15-minute free consult with myself, discuss some of your health symptoms and goals, you can do that by clicking on screen or below. All right, I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye-bye.